quick question for you out there. Who do you think has the most stressful job in the world? Maybe it's an air traffic controller trying to guide pilots in safety in a storm. Or maybe it's an emergency room physician trying to save lives after an accident. Or could it be that the most stressed people in the world are Joe Biden's handlers just before the president walks out on stage? Now, if you haven't heard, Joe Biden had a CNN town hall meeting the other day. And let's put aside the incredibly Soviet nature of the Biden White House putting on an event for citizens to ask questions of the president, because this is, of course, the same White House that's been trying to label parents who dissent from critical race theory and trans ideology being taught in schools as domestic terrorists. But anyway, let's go back to the town hall. And this, my friends, did not go well. Have a look. There were plenty of forgetful moments, and host Anderson Cooper had to help Biden through any number of answers, like this one about port congestion and the unfolding supply chain disaster that is threatening to ruin Christmas.
All products coming into the United States of America on the West Coast go through Los Angeles and what am I doing here?
Is it Long Beach?
Long Beach, thank you.
And again, we've got to ask, what was he doing with his hands?
That just in terms of inflation, because you had told us at a town hall, I think it was in July, that this was just near-term inflation.
Maybe he read this 2013 study in which researchers found that clenching your fists could improve your memory. There were plenty of other Joe classics on display, too. For example, there was the weird, creepy, heavy-breathing whisper when he tried to claim that big corporations
don't pay a cent.
Don't pay a cent. Don't pay a cent in taxes. There were the rambling answers, such as this one about, and just see where he goes with this, about high petrol prices.
So but I must tell you, I don't have a near-term answer. There's two things I could do. I could go in the petroleum reserve and take out and probably reduce the price of gas, maybe 18 cents or so a gallon. It's still going to be above $3. And one of the things that I refused to have happen, because I didn't want anybody, I made a commitment, if you pass the stuff I'm talking about, not one single penny in tax would go against anybody making less than $400,000. And so if you notice, these highway bills are not paid for by gas tax.
And he was wearing an onion tied to his belt because that was the fashion at the time. But anyway, prices at the pump might not be such a big deal if Biden didn't come in and wallop the oil and gas industry pretty much the first order of business after he was sworn in. But, okay, fine. Sleepy Joe also told us that he was too busy, yes, too busy to get to the southern border with Mexico, where as many as 400,000 illegal migrants are now expected to come across the border every month.
Do you have plans to visit the southern border?
I've been there before, and I haven't. I mean, I know it well. I guess I should go down, but the whole point of it is I haven't had a whole hell of a lot of time to get down.
Yeah, hasn't had a whole hell of a lot of time doing, I don't know, looking after the thing. And, come on, man, I could go on, but it would take literally the rest of the show and all morning. Credit to Walkaway Joe Biden, I guess, for taking questions, even in such a highly scripted softball Soviet-style affair. But Americans and everybody else should be disturbed by this doddering, feeble old man running the most powerful country in the world, because what we saw there was nothing more than a propaganda exercise designed to shut down perfectly reasonable perceptions that this is an administration that is stumbling from failure to chaotic failure, and with the worst still yet to come.
I love this story about Ron DeSantis, his ideas to do with the borders, the open borders in Florida. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, what he wants to do, and I love this, he's saying, well, if you're going to start shipping illegal immigrants into Florida, Joe Biden, I'm going to put them on a plane and start shipping them to Delaware, your home state. So sit here like them apples, Sleepy Joe.
I think there's a few vacant basements up there in Delaware that would easily, quite happily accommodate.
They could fit a lot into his mansions. Joe
exactly.
Biden's, on a public service salary.
Certainly could.
Everybody now on the conservative side of politics are saying that they are proud members of the LGBT community. Who would have thought that would have happened? And now, though, people are understanding, and it's so funny watching the left try to catch up with this. Jen Psaki, the spokeswoman for the White House, and God has she got a heavy lift, has tried to deny the whole thing is even existing. But what people are pointing out is that this is not just, Rowan and Rita, about saying F Joe Biden. It is not just about saying, we don't like the president and his policies and the fact that there's no food on the shelves and that everything's expensive and you can't get gas and all of these other things. It is actually really as much an indictment of the media as anything else, which has been for the last year or so trying to cover so hard for Joe Biden, covering up for him, lying for him, lying for everything. Whether it's, the way they covered up the Hunter Biden tapes and the Hunter Biden laptop before the election so that there would be nothing that could trouble a Joe Biden victory, to the way that they've lifted for him at every single scandal, failure, Afghanistan, everything else, the border, which we talk about every week on this show. They're all saying to the media, well, they're saying, let's go brand it to them, too, because they do not trust the media. And the polls in the U.S. now show that the media is mistrusted more in the U.S. than in just about any industrialized country. It is a complete indictment on the U.S. press. Have we hit, finally, has the Biden administration gone too far in pushing the American people so far to the left? I mean, I say the Biden administration, but we know he's not in charge. Whoever's in charge at the White House that is pushing all of these ridiculous mandates, forcing critical race theory everywhere, trying to tear down the country, have they hit the point? I was just talking about the opinion polls that show Biden down at 36%. Have Americans finally had enough?
Well, 36% isn't zero, so he's got more to fall. I think the American people have absolutely had enough. I think that this is going to be reflective in the midterms. I think there's going to be a landslide for Republicans. And if there isn't, by the way, every single Republican advisor needs to be fired immediately. But his falling in the polls, by the way, isn't recent. Isn't since Afghanistan. He's been falling steadily in the polls from his first weeks in the administration because he went out so quickly out of the gates to move the party into the radical left. I think, and by the way, that number shows the most troubling of those statistics you showed is the independents. He has been falling precipitously among the independents, not just among Republicans, among the population as a whole. I mean, that's where you win and lose races. So, look, if I were him, I'd hope this is the bottom, but I don't think it is.
On to America, where Joe Biden this week continued his reputation for promoting both eloquence and racial harmony in this touching tribute to the great African-American baseball player, Satchel Paige.
I've adopted the attitude of the great Negro at the time pitcher in the Negro Leagues, went on to become a great pitcher in the pros, into the Major League Baseball after Jackie Robinson. His name was Satchel Paige.
You can just imagine the fury if Donald Trump had said something like that, but that's not even the worst of it. Racial gaffes are bad enough, but can you imagine the outrage if Donald Trump also enlisted the support of the FBI to raid the homes of unfriendly journalists, and then the FBI leaked contents of what they found to more friendly members of the press? Well, I hope everyone is just as outraged, because that's exactly what is happening in Joe Biden's America. Last week, the FBI raided the home of Project Veritas journalist and founder James O'Keefe, whose undercover stings have embarrassed woke organizations from Antifa to Acorn to CNN, as part of an investigation into an allegedly stolen journal said to have been written by Joe Biden's daughter Ashley while she was staying at a drug and alcohol rehab facility in 2020. The diary, which O'Keefe actually refused to publish because he couldn't verify its authenticity, contains some pretty disturbing stuff, including memories of taking showers as a girl with Joe that were, quote, probably inappropriate. Let's hear from James O'Keefe in his own words what the experience of being raided by the FBI was like.
But I woke up to a pre-dawn raid, banging on my door. I went to the door to answer the door, and there were 10 FBI agents with a battering ram, white blinding lights. They turned me around, handcuffed me, and threw me against the hallway. I was partially clothed in front of my neighbors. They confiscated my phone. They raided my apartment. On my phone were many of my reporters' notes, a lot of my sources unrelated to this story, and a lot of confidential donor information to our news organization, Sean. So I've heard the phrase, the process is the punishment. I didn't really understand what that meant until this weekend. And Sean, I wouldn't wish this on any journalist.
And it wasn't only O'Keefe. Several of his other journalists also got the knock on the door. You can only imagine how terrifying that would have been, or what the reaction would be if it was a journalist from, say, the Washington Post being thrown up against the wall by the FBI under the presidency of a certain Donald J. Trump. Now, thankfully, a judge has ordered the FBI to stop searching O'Keefe's phone, but the damage has already been done. The New York Times has already published an expose of, quote, internal documents it says it obtained about the way O'Keefe's Project Veritas works and consults with lawyers to stay on the right side of the law. Within an hour of the raid, O'Keefe was even getting called for comment from the Times. And, well, you just have to wonder how the Times even knew that the raid had happened. Come on, you don't need to be Elliot Ness to see what's going on here. The FBI, acting as the Biden family's goon squad, raided the home of an unfriendly journalist and leaked what it found to friendly media to try and destroy his reputation. Oh, and also to scare off any other journalists who might be thinking about going down the same road. Again, let's be clear here. Possession of a stolen diary is hardly a federal crime, even if it was purportedly written by the president's daughter. We already saw how compromised FBI agents conspired to tilt evidence against Trump in the Russia probe, and now we are seeing the once storied agency dragged into the mud of Biden family dysfunction. Perhaps it's time to disband the agency and to come up with a nonpartisan body that is actually about enforcing the law and not playing politics.